already, which, as luck would have it, was all the props, all of them. So, and then that shader got used on Deathwing as well, and that's sort of a cross-pollination that the team does constantly. Well, it turns out that Twilight Hammer priests are supposed to summon this up from the ground, and the Gothic kind of sculpted look wasn't really appearing like something that had been spawned up. So we started thinking, well, this is like a forged version, and then there'll be more of an organic one that is the summon stuff. And this is probably the first prop where we attempted to show a more organic, summoned up version, a barricade. And here is how it is now in the game. This is like a spire of summoned Elementium. And then as you get further into like the Twilight Highlands, you'll see more and more of this. Here you can see it wrapped around this horrible dragon drying thing. So to finally tie all this together, it's reason that the Twilight Hammer would have a more structured appearance back at their home base, or where they start, which is the Bastion of Twilight. That's that, a dungeon. And then the further out they got out into like Twilight Highlands, you'd see more and more of the spawned up organic stuff, and you'd see the props that they had, or they don't call them props, but all their stuff that they brought with them in wagons covered with blood. Here is Twilight Hammer now
and
as in the game. So
if his suit is constantly broadcasting every conversation that he has, or even type beaming every conversation that he has, there's a pretty good chance that Swan or someone else is going to...
And this is Deepholm. So while we're doing all these changes and this whole look is evolving, we're working on other cultures as well, such as the Wild Hammer dwarves. Notice the names. They're very similar. So this led to some interesting mix-ups. Wild Hammer dwarves, they like stone throwers, siege weapons, and they like griffins. They're griffin riders. The Twilight's Hammer likes none of that. So here is the Twilight's Hammer stone thrower. Not in the game. And the Twilight's Hammer griffin stand. That griffin just ruins the whole scary thing there. So now, as I promised you, and you can all leave after I say this, I'm going to show you the greatest prop ever made. And I know this because I voted on it, and this is what won.
All right, so I have a video that briefly showcases the development of our new player races. So here we have the old world Worgen. It was fierce, but it wasn't player character fierce. We updated it for Northrend, but it was mainly just a texture change. So these were great as mobs, but we needed to do something to re-envision them as player characters. So we spent time concepting what we thought the player Worgen should look like. And this was our first playable version. It was a good first pass, but it seemed to be lacking something. So we studied what we had done, identified what we felt like we were just missing on, and we modified it into this, our new final Worgen. So the goblins were much easier. They are so established in the game. We had this really old model to start with, and we had to find a way to breathe new life into it. Here's the new player model. Higher detailed mesh and textures, exaggerated features, a major graphics overhaul, but we retain the core elements that define being Goblin. Notice the variety of facial customization available. They have many dozens of combinations of ears, noses, and chins. Thank you.
So our lead animator, Steve Aguilar, couldn't be with us today, so I'm going to attempt to go through his presentation. This will show you how much I pay attention when we're putting these things together. I should also mention that in Blue's presentation, we don't show the Worgen female because we actually recently put a little more work into it, and it's not at a point where we're ready to show it yet, so that's why it was not in his presentation, in case anyone was wondering. All right, so let's look at animation. So the animation team is responsible for not only animating characters and creatures, but also effects, or some of the effects we do for the game. This was a druid regrowth spell that Slim did. So this little guy we created for the StarCraft II Collector's Edition. And this is a good example of the partnership between animation and effects, where the animators will go through and make them look cool, and the effects guys will go in and make it look alive. This little guy, you're all gonna get. This is Deathwing Murky. This is really cool. This is our archaeology pet. So you notice he's Rochambeauing or rock, paper, scissors. When you run into another player in game that has one of these, you'll actually play off against one another and win or lose. So these are the new dances that we did for the Worgen and Goblins.
The Stalker's left, he can make a push on Blue.
In proxy rushes, his second video we're going to show is
They're actually a stone skin type of creation, but this is one of the skins that we did that's more of a flesh or a live version. This is the Etten. It's a giant